So this originally was going to open with an anecdote about how I first came across this movie and the path to obsession it set me on, but really all you gotta know is that it's a stellar argument for everything great about classic kung fu. The pageantry, the woefully bad prosthetics, the sets, of course the fighting. I watched this and the next thing I knew I was buying up every Dragon Dynasty DVD I could find. So I couldn't think of a better first movie to talk about. This is The Five Deadly Venoms. You love a good quick start, don't you? No context, no narration, just cooking. The potato in question is the Grand Master of the Venom School of Martial Arts, a gang of ill repute infamous for their dark dealings and even darker deeds. But be it because of his impending mortality, a sudden surge of guilt, or a late life awakening to justice, the Grand Master has become determined to have at least some good come from the clan's ill-gotten gains. Luckily, an old classmate of his knows the location of the clan's treasure stores, so all he and his disciple, played by Chang Shang, must do is get in touch, they'll donate the treasure to charity, and the clan's paragon points will go through the roof. Or it would be that easy if they were the only ones who knew. As it turns out, the disciple is only the latest of the Grand Master's students. In fact, he's the sixth. And those previous students have also heard about the vast treasure stores and even now converge to claim it for themselves. What's more, all five of them have mastered one of the clan's esoteric martial arts, each one themed after a venomous creature, making them, five deadly users of venom style, you may say. And so, in what is probably the film's most famous scene, we're introduced to each master and given a quick breakdown of their style. I'm gonna have to front load this a little, so stay with me. We have the eldest, Brother Centipede, who attacks with such rapid speed that it's as if he's attacking with 100 limbs at once. His strikes are brutal and constant, and he only looks a little silly with his high-speed flailing. Next is Brother Snake, or, if you're nasty, the Spirit Snake Dude. I have absolutely nothing to add to that, I just really wanted you to know that that is apparently his Christian name. Brother Snake is, as far as I can tell, a critical hit class, using his hands as the fangs and tail of the snake to strike his opponents in vital areas for killing blows. He's also an expert at fighting on his back because, what else you could have a snake do? Next up is the enigmatic Brother Scorpion. His hands act as claws, striking and grappling the opponent until he can unleash one of his devastating, stinger-like kicks, destroying his opponent with sheer power. Or at least that's the best I can figure it, the theming is kinda shaky here. Dude's got kicks for miles though, I'll tell you that for free. In fourth place we have, well, I know he's the lizard in most translations, but my DVD refers to him as the gecko, and I've been calling him that for years, so I'm just going to stick to what I know. So Brother Gecko is the clearly supernatural ability to cling to walls. This allows him to attack from difficult to defend angles, as well as evade most counterattacks. He also tends to hit harder from the wall, presumably because he can throw his whole body into said strikes, or use gravity to execute some pretty gnarly plunging attacks. Last but most certainly not least, we have Brother Toad. If Gecko was straining credulity, then Toad outright snaps it. See, Toad is, well...
蛤蟆功运足真气，全身
Yep, Toad is functionally invincible. No weapon can pierce his flesh, and most strikes just bounce off of him. He also seems to have some measure of super strength, although that might be more because not having to worry about hurting himself allows him to swing with wild abandon. He's basically unstoppable, or so it seems. Lastly, we should note that despite being students of the same school, they didn't all train together. Centipede and Snake learned together, as did Gecko and Toad, but neither pair met the other and no one met Scorpion. Normally this would be a fairly minor detail, but considering the spine of the movie is fundamentally a race between the students to get information about the treasure, it provides the explanation for why some of the more belligerent participants don't just beeline for the others and kill them. Unfortunately, even with all this potential for tomfoolery, Grandmaster cannot go himself due to suffering from... whatever the hell necessitates this as a treatment. So, the disciple will have to go in his stead, still incompletely trained, but with knowledge and some skill in all the styles, which makes him essentially a Venom's red mage. While he would be easy pickings in a straight fight with any of the others, were he to align himself with the more virtuous students, his aid would likely be enough for said good guy, or guys, to win. With the plot firmly established, the disciple sets out for the big city. The funny thing is, for all that talk I did about the secrecy and subtlety of the setup, the identities of the masters are revealed pretty much instantly, to us at least. In rapid order, we meet Constable He, played by Kwok Choi, who is revealed to be the Gecko in a short meetup with Toad, played by the man, the myth, Lo Mang. Gecko gives a bit of a questionable first impression, not above using his position for small benefits and earning him light admonishment from his senpai Constable Ma, played by Sun Qian. But his interactions with the overtly good-natured Toad and generally friendly attitude toward others marks him as a good man overall. Meanwhile, on Park Avenue, we meet Mr. Wen Tong, a master of subtle dress sense and well-to-do member of society played by Wai Pak. So of course he's revealed to be one of the Venoms. There's no way a vest that ugly doesn't belong to a main character. We see him meet up with the not evil looking at all Tang, aka the Centipede, played by Lu Feng. He and Wen Tong, the snake, will be your antagonists for the evening, and they establish their villain credentials almost immediately during a nighttime raid on the home of Court Clerk Yun, played by legendary Shaw Brothers journeyman Ku Feng. Turns out the clerk is the mysterious Venom elder, now retired and living as a civil servant. He's not completely out of practice, but he's quickly subdued alongside the rest of his family. We're treated to some threats, some high-speed elder abuse, and then the two of them slaughter Yun and his entire family, in a scene that's actually fairly upsetting. I want you to remember this, I'll be bringing it up later. Oh, and on their way out, Centipede is seen by a passing street urchin. Before the night is through, we get our first appearance from the Scorpion, masked up to add to the mystery of his identity. He actually finds the map to the treasure in a candlestick, which, as far as places to hide a map, really is quite novel, and could theoretically just grab it and skip town. But then the plot would be ruined, so instead he kind of just meanders around the edges of the story, occasionally popping in to be conspiratorial with whoever will listen. The urchin tells Gecko what he saw, and the Gecko in turn asks the Toad for help apprehending the man, suspecting he might be a dangerous fighter due to the condition of the bodies of Yun's family. Toad, who has basically spent the whole movie drinking, sitting, and doing this, jumps at the opportunity for some action. And so, led by Constable Ma, the cops surround Centipede. He tries to intimidate them with some high-speed voguing, and we get the first proper fight of the movie. It's a good old-fashioned unstoppable force versus a movable object conflict. Centipede keeps coming at Toad with these 10-piece combos of his, but even when he manages to land a hit, it really doesn't matter since Toad's style is mostly impregnable. The choreography in these older movies tends to be somewhat rhythmic, the strike, parry, strike occasionally feeling more dance-like than actual attempts at lethal blows, but you still end up getting into it, especially when the speed kicks up and people start flip-flailing at each other. A failed attempt at high-speed sweeping of the leg, helped along by the disciple accidentally interfering, results in Centipede being arrested and brought before the local judge, played by the great Johnny Wang. After a brief attempt at coercing a confession using these ankle clackers, the judge is called away for, I'm certain, not corrupt purposes, while Centipede, elated, engages in the soothing laughter of the obviously innocent. Turns out it was Snake who made the call, and a bribe and a few kind words later, the judge is all in on framing Toad for the crime. Yada yada, American justice system, yada yada, rich people rules. At the same time, the judge sends Gecko away on some delivery bullshit so he won't be around to intercede on Toad's behalf. Sensing chicanery, Gecko nonetheless has to obey, and after making Constable Ma promise to keep an eye out for any trouble, he convinces Toad to play along for now and go with him to court. After all, what's the worst that could happen? So the worst happens, and the urchin, having been paid off by the judge's shitbird henchman, suddenly remembers that the guy he saw was in fact a young man, strong and beardless, and since this is an ace attorney court, this sudden change in testimony passes without comment. Unfortunately, Toad is interrupted before he can take it out of the urchin's ass and starts throwing down with the guards. Ma, playing on his friendship with Gecko to build trust, convinces Toad to submit to the guards and spend a little time in the jail while they sort out this obvious mistake, and you might have realized by now that Toad is kind of stupid. Although maybe I'd be a bit more reckless if I was invulnerable to harm too, but still, maybe the occasional question, maybe don't agree to the requests of the obviously dirty judge and his equally dirty constabulary. Unfortunately for the judge, it's kind of hard to keep an Iron Man imprisoned if he doesn't want to be, but luckily Snake has a plan. Turns out the Toad style is only mostly invincible, or more accurately, its invincibility is contingent on the concealment of a single weak point on the user's body. Pierce that spot and the Toad becomes just another man who is not a poisonous amphibian. To this end, Scorpion, yeah, remember him? Scorpion gives Snake the blueprint for a torture device called the Thousand Needle Coat. Think Iron Maiden, but trading spike size for quantity. It'll hit every conceivable spot on Toad's body at once, basically assuring a weak point break. One drug dinner later, and an unconscious Toad is put in the device, which gets them nothing but this face and a pissed off Venom. He breaks free, and we're on to our next big fight. Snake vs. Toad makes for a much more entertaining fight. Snake's more intricate and less flamboyant moves make for generally more interesting choreography, as he mixes the standard shot-shot parry with these attempts to probe mid-battle for his opponent's weakness. I especially like this moment where he drops on his back to show off his more serpentine techniques. It's such a sudden and weird visual where he just matrix bends there for a second, but it's also awesome. But despite all manner of pinching, gripping, and attempted nurpling, Snake just can't make any headway. Until...
谢伟彪，现在老三也在这大堂上，是谁？是谁？
Toad takes a piercing shot to his ear testicles, and look at that paint blood. Fantastic. Now completely off balance and weakened by the sudden loss of his powers, he's easy pickings for the Snake and the guards, who put him in the coat for seemingly no reason other than to be jackholes. Our boy has been broken, and this is only the beginning. So, for the next 15 or so minutes, the movie becomes weirdly gruesome. The court still needs Toad to confess for the sake of some illusion of legitimacy, so it's time for more torture, except while Centipede got some weird ankle squeezy sticks, Toad gets some braising bullshit that sears his back. I'm surprised at how rough it looks too, considering how hilarious their prosthetics usually are. I feel like we as an audience have come to rather like Toad, even if he's dumb as a slice of ham, and seeing him get the business like this is surprisingly upsetting. But we're not done. Hey, anyone want a new weirdly specific phobia? So having just cut the knot and forged Toad's signature, the court decides to get rid of him. To wit, the judge's lapdog engages what I can only describe as ancient Chinese waterboarding, except in this case it involves just adding layers of wet parchment on a dude's face until he can't break through anymore. One noose later, and that's the end of the Toad. Rest in peace, you beautiful deli meat man. At least in the next scenes we get to see some of the less pleasant characters get some comeuppance. Since somehow none of the middlemen involved in this whole affair thought for a second that the highly secretive super martial artists who have been shown to kill to conceal their identities might not be cool with letting loose ends walk around. The urchin, oh, his name is Mentha, by the way, the urchin gets a sort of hook crammed down his throat that, according to later dialogue, slit his throat from the inside, so that's nice. Shitcop gets a much more interesting death, with them cramming a sort of fire poker up his nose to destroy his brain. I like it, very Egyptian. And just like that, nothing suspicious ever happened in the city again. We get one last quick scene with the two where, in a truly baffling late attempt at some pathos, Snake gets all, killing stuff sucks and it never ends. I'm so upset about all this bad stuff, which... Sure. Hey, you remember when this movie was about a treasure map? Oh look, Scorpion. Gecko returns from his assignment, and naturally he's thrilled by how things have gone in his absence. I really enjoy Ma's attempt at a pep talk here. Hey dude, don't throw away this sweet public service job over friend murder. Here, since I'm retiring, you can have my awesome hat. Dejected, Gecko returns to that one restaurant that everyone goes to, and seemingly to prevent any more plot-mandated wheel spinning, some random government guys get an attack of conscience and tell him about all the messed up shit that happened, while the disciple reveals himself since he is now certain that Gecko is on the up and up. And together, they start strategizing on how to kill the other two with these cute little cutaway sequences, the disciple's knowledge finally being put to good use. And with that, the final showdown is set to begin. Hell, even Ma is here, looking like he's already enjoying retirement with that vest, and offers his services to the two. Granted, he can't do much when the Super Slamdown starts, but he can at least stop any guards or reinforcements from interfering. Gratefully accepting his help, the three set off to settle this once and for all. Will Centipede and Snake get away with their crimes, while adding a few more skulls to the pile? Will Gecko get justice for his fallen friend? Will the disciple finally get to do something after farting around for literally the whole movie? And what of the still enigmatic Scorpion? Perhaps with all the players gathered, it is time he make his grand entrance. And that's all you get. For real. If you want to see how the movie ends, if you want to see the final climactic fight, you're going to have to seek it out yourself. To be honest, I'm still kind of feeling out how I want to end these things. If I want to reveal the whole movie and spoil everything for you, or if I want to leave a little something dangling so that you have something to look forward to and a reason to seek it out yourself. I mean, hell, this part isn't even scripted. Speaking of scripting, I had initially wanted to have a part in the video somewhere about the director, Chang Che, and how important he was to the whole process, and how he discovered the stars of the movie, and even what they went on to afterward, colloquially being known as the Venom mob after the success of this movie. But the video's already getting a little bit long in the tooth, and besides, I think I've mauled enough Chinese names today. And yeah, I still have no idea how to end these things yet, so thanks for watching, and if you like what you saw, maybe stick around for a while. Bye.